Hello, and welcome back to the Patrick's Green Tea podcast. For this episode, I'm sober, but I had some thoughts about music and technology that I wanted to share, so I decided to record an episode. And I talk a lot about how I experience music and my thoughts on it throughout the podcast, so I thought this would be relevant for this episode. Also, there's more content after the ad break. I record more after I sign off, so keep on listening to get the full episode. And that's about it. I hope you enjoy. Hello, I'm coming to you from some like random staircase in the Tisch building. It's freaking weird in here. How do I describe it? I'm not gonna say exactly where, um, but it's on like a basement level ish, and there's this like old looking staircase room with like these like cracked and chipped walls, like really not pretty uh, handles and stuff in the staircases. Just like looks like it's not meant to be used or seen really, or like a maintenance thing. There's no real signs for anything, and it goes like way deeper than like the actual basement, which is weird. Um, Makes me wonder how old this place is. But anyway, yeah, this is episode 7. Pretty sure. Yeah, I mean the seventh whatever episode I've recorded. I don't know how I'm going to actually number these. And this is going to be another sober cast. Sober cast. I don't know why I separated them so much. I'm recording this on... Do I do that? Do I say the date? I'll say the date anyway. September 20th... Nope, 21st. 2018. In terms of my life and stuff, I just... I don't know if I should leave that for the end. Whatever. Podcast is still rough. I really should have like a freaking set thing to read from. I think next episode I'll have something like set or like a more consistent thing to start off and the structure and everything. So anyway, I just saw yeah, I'll talk about my life later or not. It doesn't really matter. I just started the semester in my school. I'm like a month into it, and it's pretty good. But the thing that made me want to record an episode is I just saw Belle and the Beat or something, like Beauty and the Beast, but like the original French version. Uh, and the movie itself was like, it was interesting, but the more interesting things was like my thoughts while I was watching it. Like it was more of a surrogate or a catalyst, I guess is a better word, for deeper thoughts that I was having. And this made me want to bring a notebook around with me because like I was considering like carrying a notebook. I didn't really see the benefit of it, but I this is a definitive like situation where a notebook would be handy. Being in a movie or something and needing to write down your thoughts and not being able to take out your phone because that's a light and distracting. So I think a notebook would be perfect for that, where you just write down your thoughts in the moment where you can't, there's no other way to document it. You can't like speak into a memo or something because the movie's going on. You can only write, I guess. So I wrote on the back of a train receipt ticket that I was in my wallet because I had nothing else, and I didn't even have napkins in my back pocket. Usually I do from like the morning or whatever where I go to eat. I just have extra napkins in my back pocket. Even then I didn't have, because I didn't go to breakfast today. Anyway, so the thoughts I had on the back of this freaking Metro North thing that says this is your receipt and is not a ticket for travel, which took up a freaking 80% of the ticket, so I could barely write. So I wrote what I could write down. I wrote for the first thought, because I had two big thoughts, and I could springboard off of them. The first one was, this is exactly what I wrote down. Music, best medium to learn, arrow. Unlike what? Unlike movies. Okay. Learning it doesn't mean anything. It lasts something. I don't know. It was dark. I couldn't write this. So I'm going to try to reinterpret, I guess. Jesus Christ, that was horrifying. I don't know how often this is used. I mean, it wasn't kicked out, so it's fine. Music, blah, blah, blah. That like totally threw me off. Okay. No, I know what I want to say, and I can like figure it out because there's a lot there. Music, best medium to learn. All right, the lights are starting to go out. All right, it's back. Okay, so I was thinking, I was trying to think what brought me to this thought. I think it was because I was watching the movie and I saw that, or I was thinking that, like it's weird to watch movies now that I'm learning about them. And they always say like once you start learning about movies, like and how to make them, like it ruins the whole experience. And it's true because you start looking instead of just seeing the story for how it is and not even thinking at all or barely thinking about how the actual film was made. I don't know how I started this sentence, so I don't know how I can end it. I'll just try again. So without learning how movies are made, you just see them as they are, how they're supposed to be presented, and you don't really think beyond that. But once you start learning them, they like you see what what goes into them instead, like only that sometimes, because you're like, say you've been working on, like I have been, different projects or actually trying to make a movie or write something or film something, right, with a camera. And while you're doing it, you had little questions in your head, like, how do I get this, or how do I best do this? Like, how do I best structure a story? How do I best, I don't know, what angles would work or something in this situation or whatever. I don't know. How does lighting really change the way that a story is told or something like that? Just random things. So I'm doing that, in my classes, and then I watch a movie. And then pretty much anytime that like a lighting thing, or I guess anytime I notice lighting in a movie, like I think about, oh, okay, that's how it would be applied or something like that. When I'm barely thinking about the actual story, or I am, but it's like secondary. And the movie's more like a studying tool, like an inadvertent studying tool, I guess, because I don't know. It's kind of okay. So I'm just thinking about what I'm going to say later. So film is like, it's weird because it's very, it's so like all the different, blah, 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 what am I trying to say? It's such a complex thought, like it's very hard to articulate. Film is very, basically what I'm trying to say is like music is way better than film. I don't know why I did vocal fry there. Better. Music is better than film. It's the best art form I think that I've experienced. Because I guess this will explain my point better if I just go straight to music. With music, instead of like when you're learning it, so say you just want to. This is so disjointed. I'm sorry. Say you want to learn music, right? Before you learn music, you can experience it and sort of just chill with it and not really think about what goes into it, right? And then like occasionally do maybe, but just like film, you can just experience it and it's good to whatever point your understanding is at, and that's adequate and that's fine. Just like film and music both share this. The differences start to appear when you start learning about both things. So with film, you start noticing things more, and it takes away somewhat from the enjoyment of it, and also the intent of a filmmaker isn't to teach necessarily, isn't to show these things like lighting and stuff. Like the lighting and all that, the angles, the camera work is supposed to like, and the audio and all that is supposed to kind of fade into the background and not really be like it is interpreted by other people who want to make their craft better, right? sound engineers who are trying to figure out how to be better sound engineers are going to look at movies and how the sounds are made. But the person who made the movie isn't really thinking that, or maybe he or she is, but it's like not a big concern of theirs. It's more supposed to fade into the background and just like create a story, something that like has a totally different, I guess, in direction. That's like the best way I can word that. But with music, when someone's making music, it's kind of that. It's kind of like you don't really think about instructing other people. There's kind of like in both movies and music, you're thinking about showing off a little bit what you can do something different than other people have done before. But in the presentation, like what you're making, I guess for music is different and like not as good. It's not as wholesome as the movie thing, because in movies like you're trying to make a story to tell, right? In music, like what is the purpose of music? Like in a non profound way, like in a totally just normal like sober minded way. Like what is the purpose of music? I don't think you can come up with a purpose of music on that level. Because you're telling a story, I guess, but there's so much more that's like deeper. You can't really talk about what music is and what the purpose is and like the deeper meaning of art without going like really deep into something that like would probably lose a lot of people, and not really be followed by anyone except for people who are really into music anyway. So I guess so the main point I was trying to say is like movies and music are, I guess, similar. But the big thing is that music is more enjoyable once you start learning it. Yeah, why did that take so long to say? When you're actually learning the music and like learning the scales, say you take the leap to decide to learn it more and like go into the deeper tiers of like understanding. So like I was talking about this earlier with Jesus Christ. Am I still recording? Yes. With Sarah, I was talking about how music, the levels of understanding of music have tiers, I guess, where you can just sort of plateau wherever you want, wherever you feel comfortable, if you want to, and it's not really an issue, because music's more about the enjoyment in the moment, I guess, or it is for me anyway. A big part of it is that, and if you don't want to learn how to necessarily play notes in like a crazy pattern, you don't really want to learn the blues scales or something, you can just you're fine with just covering songs and stuff note by note and not really improvising, and not doing anything very complex, and it doesn't even sound bad. Like someone in the audience can really enjoy a song that's not very complex in a musical way, but it can still hold a lot of meaning for the person who's performing. I also thought about this while I was watching Beauty and the Beast. That music, it has fewer degrees of separation between the artist performing and the audience listening. There's very, very little barrier between someone's soul and like the audience they're trying to reach. Because it pretty much, like, if you play a note and you play it soulfully, it's there. It's like everything you're trying to say is pretty much there. And someone listening to that same note, that same lick over and over again will get a bunch of different meaning from that one thing, that one song, that one chord, that one long note. Like, it can mean a bunch of different things at different times to the same person, depending on where they are in their life. It can mean different things to different people at different times in their life. There's a lot that can be held in that. But the main point is, like, in person, live, there's no real room, not room for interpretation. There's no real potential, I guess, for the actual soul to get lost, the message to get lost, because the message is so big in music and deep, that it's hard to like that nothing that there's pretty much only I don't know. This is so difficult. This like anytime I talk about music in like a really abstract way, it's very very difficult. Um, I think I made my main point, but there's like so much. There's so much I could say and want to say that I'm not saying exactly right. Um, Maybe it would be better if it was written down. I definitely want to do some sort of like written article or paper or something where I explain what music means and like the way I've interpreted it. Because I think that would be way better, like to read and understand for someone else, um, than just me talking on the fly. The ideas would be a lot clearer. I think I could have more time to think them out. Because like when I talk like this, I can't really let too much radio silence happen. Because if I just like stop talking and think really hard about what I want to say, then it's really awkward to listen to. The point I make is better, I guess, but like just the medium of audio is like not really good for that necessarily. So when I just talk free form like this, it's like I get thoughts out, but it's a lot more scattered, and you have to sort of pick it up for yourself. And then if they don't really connect as well and stuff like that. It's hard to structure, especially like an abstract thought like this, where I just had one bullet point that I'm trying to like go off of. Maybe I should have prepared it better. I don't know. Yeah, I probably should have, but I don't know. So yeah, the main point I think was made. But it was before I move on from that one. There's one big point that I wanted to say. The degrees of separation thing was important. I wanted to say that. I'm glad I didn't forget that. But it was something else. Maybe I'll remember it later. I'll just move on. Okay, but the point two that I wrote under the big red letters on the back of this freaking train ticket receipt. History teaches appreciation of context. Easy to forget why old tech is important. Was once novel. Once meant a lot to people. So that's a more clear thought. I think I can elaborate on better because it's less abstract. When I was watching the movie, I was thinking about how they did they had this section in the movie, or a bunch of different sections. They had a trick in the movie where she'd be looking at the mirror. So it was the camera that was on the mirror, and then something would appear inside the mirror, like, it's a magic mirror. You ask for something, or you think of something, and it shows you what you're thinking about or what you want to see, right? But I was thinking about how they actually did that back when they were making the movie. How they were able to mix two frames together and stuff, like physically, how did they do that? If it was physical, okay, it definitely was physical because it was film, but like it's really stuff like that, and like how animation works, stuff like that's super interesting, like old animation, and it's kind of the same with old film. I really want to know, so that led me to think about like history in general, and that led me to think about history of animation, the class I'm taking. And it made me realize why I like the class so much, and going off of that, why I like history so much. I guess it's because, like I said, history teaches appreciation of context. So you can live, like I've been living my life pretty much when I was younger, like not really understanding why people would want to use old methods. Like why anyone would write on paper, I guess. That's a okay example. Why anyone would, I guess, like in the film way, why anyone would use like physical film instead of digital. Why anyone would write down notes instead of using like a Google Doc or like a Microsoft Word or something like that to like write, because it seems so much better. Stuff like that. And it makes me like not. It doesn't really blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a perspectiveless view of the world. Just straight moving forward and just using the best technology available to you. I think learning history and the way that people did things and lived before the best technology was available is very, very important to understanding, like, to appreciating, I guess, what the technology meant to them, because back then, like, paper, like, especially when paper was invented and, like, say the book was invented, it meant a lot to the people who were able to read now, people who were able to write, and a bunch of different people. But, like, probably I can't even think of, like, it was such a profound movement from, like, nothing, like, no real way to communicate besides spoken word and, like, scribes, that's not the, and scrolls, I guess, and, like, things that you can't really mass produce or copy without taking a long time to write it down yourself by hand. The printing press was able to, like, you know, you can look up the history of the printing press, but it's so, like, it was a huge change in the way people lived and how they received information and transferred it. So that's, like, a pretty common thing. Like, a lot of people understand the printing press and appreciate it. But, like, there's technology now, like, you know, carrying a notebook around or calling people physically instead of texting them, that it's so recent that it doesn't feel as profound. And it was updated so quickly because the telephone isn't that old. I don't think it's even 100 years old. Actually, I don't know about that, but it's less than 200 years old. I'm almost certain of that. And texting, you know, relatively didn't come that soon after, or didn't come that long after the telephone was invented. So it's just like, oh, the telephone was just a stepping stone or whatever, and you kind of, like, forget why it was important. And, you know, talking on the telephone is like a lost art, I guess. Like, 3 different people have talked about this in the past week, like, totally different, like, podcasters, other people in my life, and, like, me thinking about it. Just, like, and something else, not just me thinking about it, but like, the telephone and, like, writing on physical notebooks and stuff is very, very underappreciated and underrated, stuff like that. So that's like a thing that history would, like, physically actually make you change in your life now, when you appreciate the context of how important something was to someone, you know, when the telephone was invented, how important that was to people back then, how much of a revolution that was. When you appreciate that, and, like, how films were made, and, like, the shitty, like, special effects that we see on film, like, that was the best they had at the time. Like, we don't really it's hard to put that into perspective because we know what came after that and what we have now. But back then they didn't know that eventually we'd have 3D. Like, they didn't even know what the computers, like, would be, what simulation even was. Like, the word computer and simulation probably didn't even exist, beyond, like, some obscure math term probably. But, you know, sometimes words just don't even exist until, like, 1990, which is, like, bizarre. But yeah, it's like these technologies and these ways of doing things are very, very they're unique, I guess, and they see that now I had to think about this, but I don't want to create radio silence, so I just kind of have to, like, make noise while I'm thinking blah 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 blah. What was I even thinking about? See, like, when I start thinking about that too much, then I forget what I was talking about. No, I know what I was talking about. But ba-boop, ba-doop, da-doop, ba-boop, doobie-doobie-doop-bop. I don't even know what I was thinking about. I guess that's lost. But yeah, I keep, like, hitting my knee. That's what that sound is. Fuck, I don't know. Technology is important. See, I know, like, conceptually what I was trying to say, but, like, I've already explained it. I don't know. You get the idea, I hope. Yeah, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But yeah, I really wanted to write down those 2 ideas, and there's probably more stuff that I'm going to think about later that I forgot to say, like whatever I was thinking about with music. that I would be like, damn, I should have added that to the podcast. But I'm sure I'll write that down and add it later. So yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll record here again. I don't know. It's kind of weird with people walking through. It's cool though. It's a cool location. It's like looking at all this old stuff. It kind of helped me think about the technology. Not really like consciously like, oh, look at all this old stuff. Like that could, but it's sort of like, it was cool to look at like old concrete and old stairs with all this, I don't even know, definitely decades old architecture. Like it definitely helped me talk about it. Put me in a different like mindset. Made me forget about like what time we're living in now. So that was cool. But yeah, I guess my points were made. And I'm sure if someone else was here, like a guest, we'd be able to riff more. So I definitely want to get a guest on at some point. Multiple guests. That'd be good. And I understand why podcasts have multiple people, because one person's really hard for many reasons. Like even if the structure wasn't okay, like it would seem more natural, I guess, to explain the points that they were trying to make, or even the points that they weren't even trying to make, that were just being made, important points that just had to be said. So yeah. So yeah, this is I'm just fucking rambling now. Okay. And anything else I want to say? Before I go? No, I think I'm good. No, I was going to read off these numbers that were on the post at the staircase thing, but I don't think I should. I think that'll give away my location. It's so cool. I definitely want to, I love like checking out these, because I just walked into this place like 2 minutes before I started recording. It's very bizarre. And I kept having to wave my hand because there was an automatic motion light. There's no cameras in here, which is nice, which is part of the reason I came in here. But there's so many little alcoves and like hidden things, especially in the buildings that I've been in, that I live in, and the building that I go to school in, that are like so weird and cool. And I love like exploring, like discovering new places like that. And this isn't illegal. I haven't gotten in trouble, right? I think I'm fine. Maybe. I don't know. There's no real place to record around here. Can't really record in my room because that'd be kind of weird. If my roommate walks in or something, I don't know if I'd be able to. I'd probably have to pause it or something. I don't know. But then I wouldn't know where I would record. So this is the best option I had, and I'm glad I found it. But yeah, okay. There's no intelligent thing I'm going to say in the next few minutes, so that's it. Episode 7/8/ whatever it's gonna be, or /6, I guess. I don't even know. That's me. That's a wrap. All right. Until next time. Bye bye. All right. So we're back. I just remembered what I was trying to say about the music. I had to walk almost back to my dorm and have someone call me to remind me. Not like literally, but like the universe reminding me or whatever. I was walking home, and then I was going to call my English teacher because the podcast reminded me of like, I guess, that I should try to like, it didn't really remind me directly, but it sort of made me, it sort of inspired me to call her, I guess. And because I wasn't really doing anything tonight, so I figured I might as well just call. And she's definitely a great person to talk to. And considering all the times that I go back home during the school year when they're still in school, still have classes running and all that, and the scheduling and stuff, it's meeting in person's a lot rarer than calling on the phone would be. And I think there's a lot of potential really good conversations and things we could learn from each other if we just talked as much as we could. So yeah, that's another reason why you should call people on the phone.
So then after that, after I was trying to call her, this guy Richie called me, musician that I learned that I met recently, and that reminded me another reason why I like music so much, and to sort of just explain that. And explain like the difference between film and music. The thing with music is like, as you're learning, I'm also walking, so sorry if I'm out of breath or whatever, or it's like I have to talk in between breaths. As I learn music, there's also the whole sense of community you can find, and there's a whole different potential, I guess, to riff off of another person and to learn in person, and to sort of like see their experience and their life through their music as they're teaching it to you, to see like their sort of way that they interpret everything, and to physically learn musical stuff, I guess, that you could actually apply to your own playing. So all that, there's like such a depth to that you just don't get with anything else, especially not film, or not especially not film, but even with film. Like, you don't really get that in any other art form. There's no real sort of connection you can get when you're trying to learn one-on-one with someone. Plus, like Sarah, I know she, with her music teacher, like eventually, after a certain number of lessons, when she got good enough, they would just jam together. And he said that he hadn't had that much fun jamming in decades. And I thought, like, that wouldn't really happen in any other profession, because like to teach someone music, you have to actually play, and the act of playing is so fun. So that's rewarding in itself. I'm sorry if like the background noises are loud. I hope to God that this is clean. So yeah, it's like there's so much more I could talk about with music that I'm just going to add to through the course of this podcast, and my life, I guess. Try to figure it out and just sort of synthesize it into words and write it down somewhere. Because I have so many thoughts about music, and music especially, that it's just so, like, it's such a profound thing, and I definitely want to compile what I figured out about it, I guess. And I have a bunch of other thoughts too, like the previous podcast that I actually recorded, like this podcast, that didn't get said. There's so much that wasn't said that I wanted said, that I thought about later, and other thoughts that I thought were really interesting, but just aren't really relevant in any sort of context except for like in the moment. So they wouldn't really be captured unless you're just always recording. So, I don't know. It's the best medium we have, I guess, podcasting, long form, in terms of like documenting things and like spreading thoughts. I didn't even think of that. How podcasting is another form of art. Weirdly, I'm only like realizing these things as I say them. Like, I don't even know the word I'm going to say next, and then it just comes out. It's like, oh wow, that's a really cool thought. Yeah, podcasting is its own art form. So where does that fall on the whole spectrum? I guess podcasting is above film and slightly below music, just because music has so much to it. Podcasting is just conversation, although like just conversation. Like, what does that mean? Like, conversation is so deep in and of itself and rewarding. But there's the whole editing. I don't know. There's definitely a stress to podcasting, but probably the same amount of stress that there would be in music. Maybe less than music. I don't know. Maybe it's a competitor, podcasting. Very interesting. This is the first I've thought about it. I have to think about it more and come back. All right, yeah. I just wanted to talk about that. I also, there was a tech, which is like a lesson in the software or hardware, whatever. That's not a lecture. That's what a tech is. We had a tech on Tuesday for Premiere, which is an editing software. And the teacher there, he said something that like resonated with me, but I didn't know how much it meant or what it meant. He said that in documentary, when you're editing, the best practice is to edit until you're happy with the product and not when the product's finished. And like, I didn't understand that at first, but he like explained like, you can edit forever, like the project will never be finished, but you have to get to a point where you're happy with it, and that's when you're done, because otherwise you'll never get out of that editing room. You'll never, submit it to anything. And I didn't realize how much that applied to the podcast, I guess, until I was about to do this one. And I was thinking about like how before I jumped in with this second I don't know, this epilogue to the podcast, I didn't the end of that part, the end of the actual podcast I just recorded was very like spread out. I didn't really say anything that was really captivating. Oh my god, there's so much noise. I hope this is entertaining. Okay. See, I'm just walking, but then I go into quiet streets and loud streets. Oh my god. I'm going to lose whatever I was just saying. No, I won't. Okay, so I was making a lot of nothing at the end of that. So that just, I sort of connected the two thoughts, where it's like being done with something when you're happy with it and not when it's over. Because I could have talked for, like I said, I could record myself all day and get thoughts, but that's not really, at that point, no one would want to listen. It wouldn't be very clean, and the thoughts would get lost because of that. And I think thoughts are better when they're, or like profound thoughts and whatever, are better when they're like distilled into something smaller. So because of that, I thought when I end the podcast, I should just end it when I'm happy with it. Jesus Christ, why did that take so long to say? See, like that in and of itself, see, right now I'm happy with it, except there's one thing I want to say before I go. I had it. Oh my god. Alright, so podcasting. Oh no, it's gone. It's like going deeper and deeper into nothing. I'm going to stop walking and think, because I really want to say this and not have to. No, I'll pause right now. I'll pause. So that was the last thing I recorded that day. I didn't continue the episode at all after that point, so this is where the episode ends. It's kind of an abrupt way to stop, but these things happen. Anyways, thanks for listening to the podcast. You can find me at PatricksGreenTea on Patreon, Discord, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, and Bandcamp. Patrick's Green Tea Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Instagram. At PatrickGreenTea without an S on Twitter. You can join our subreddit at r/PatricksGreenTea. You can make comments on the website PatricksGreenTea.com and on YouTube. And you can contact me directly at PatricksGreenTea@gmail.com. Thank you so much and have a lovely day.